The reason why they provoked Anjana Kashyap to make that statement was to take the attention away from Dharmendra Pradhan, the crisis of NEET. Anjana Kashyap took the bullet on herself. But simultaneously, these teachers who are speaking back in self-respect. I mean, that's an astounding thing in this atmosphere of fear, an atmosphere of silencing. These teachers, the way they are speaking back, and for their self-respect is something, astounding. These teachers are offering. One, they're attacking Anjana Kashyap herself for her irresponsible reportage, but they're also critiquing the nature of regime, the kind of narratives the regime has. That the anger is not only against Anjana Kashyap, but they're able to read through. And somebody needs to break the ice. There is a lot of discontent with fear. And if these teachers, like small mutinies, take small steps where they can break that fear, I think it will have a ripple effect. It will have a ripple effect. So Anjana is a non-issue for me. What is getting articulated behind Anjana's controversy is a big issue. That on one hand, we should not lose focus of higher education crisis in this country with NEET, paper leakages, commercialization of education. I think that focus should not be lost. That's what was taking off, and Anjana kind of diverted it onto herself.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Now, there is a sentence that has been echoing across every corner of the Indian internet since Thursday evening, if you remember. And that sentence did not come from a student. It did not come from a politician. It did not come from any tech entrepreneur. It came from a primetime news anchor sitting behind a studio desk, referring to some of India's most followed educators as do kaudi ke. That's a Hindi phrase which almost means that they are worthless, essentially calling them big frauds. Now, you must be wondering who's the anchor I'm talking about. If people have followed on the social media, they already know that. This anchor is Anjana Kashyap. She's a senior journalist. She's a managing editor at one of Hindi television's biggest news channels. That is TV Today, what is called Aaj Tak. And those remarks made during a live debate, which was broadcast on May 29th and 30th, have since triggered one of the most unusual media storms of this year, where the people are fighting back, not politicians or celebrities, but teachers. So it's Anjana Kashyap versus the online teachers. Now, some of the online teachers who are renowned, like Prashant Kiran, Babita Ma'am, Khan Sir, all of them have reacted, and they are trying to demolish Anjana Kashyap's sentence left, right, and center. But this kind of a storm, what does this indicate? What is the larger problem which the people are missing to address? That's something which we are going to be discussing. And joining me this evening is Professor Ajay Gudavarti, who's an author. He's a professor at Jawaharlal Nehru University who tracks the social and political movements very, very carefully. Thank you, Professor Gudavarti. And my first question to you is that since Thursday, today it's Tuesday, it's almost like 5 to 6 days, and the campaign, and this is it's a campaign which has just come up originally. Nobody thought that this would become a campaign against Anjana Kashyap. But why is the government so helpless in obliterating this campaign? Because this is a government which is known to block YouTube channels, and all these online teachers have their YouTube platforms. They are very active on the X handles, but the government is not blocking them. The government is not blocking their YouTube channels. Is the government looking helpless at the hands of these online YouTube teachers?
Well, no, Neelu, I think the government is actually caught unaware and caught in a catch-22 situation. The reason why they provoked Anjana Kashyap to make that statement was to take the attention away from Dharmendra Pradhan, the crisis of NEET, paper leakage, CBSE leakage, QT crisis. That was the original purpose, which partly it served. Anjana Kashyap took the bullet on herself. but simultaneously these teachers who are speaking back in self-respect. I mean, that's an astounding thing in this atmosphere of fear, an atmosphere of silencing. These teachers, the way they are speaking back, and for their self-respect is something, astounding. I have never seen in the last 10 years of this regime. I think these teachers, the way they are holding up for themselves is something great. But even as the attention diverted to Anjana Om Kashyap, I think the nature of critique that these teachers are offering. One, they're attacking Anjana Om Kashyap herself for her irresponsible reportage, but they're also critiquing the nature of regime, the kind of narratives the regime has put, giving 2000 chip in a 2000 note, that no question has been asked to Mr. Prime Minister, that you only talk about mangoes. I mean, this is very scathing critique, not just against Anjana Om Kashyap. It's a scathing critique against the regime. And these teachers have huge following among students, especially the most significant part of these teachers these are the few teachers who have great following in the rural areas, in the first generation rural areas of OBCs, SCs, STs. I think that reach not many of us have. These teachers have that unique advantage of having reach among the Gen Z, which is not just urban, but Gen Z, which is Mofussil and which is in the rural areas. I think that vote bank, that social base, nobody else can reach. I think not even our media channels, many of us, I don't think have that reach in that part of. I think that the way these teachers are going all out against the regime through Anjana Om Kashyap, taking Anjana Om Kashyap as an excuse, I think we'll have a great telling, because the way students are clapping when these teachers are speaking out shows that the anger is not only against Anjana Om Kashyap, but they're able to read through. And somebody needs to break the ice. There is a lot of discontent with fear. And if these teachers, like small mutinies, take small steps where they can break that fear, I think it will have a ripple effect. It will have a ripple effect.
No, just for the sake of the viewers who might not have followed on what's happening on the social media and why Anjana Om Kashyap, this backlash against Anjana Om Kashyap has become so big. Now the debate clip, which spread with an unusual speed. Now, what did Anjana Om Kashyap say in that clip? What she said was that these YouTube teachers know nothing. They draw things on the blackboards, not to educate, but to grab views. They do drama and make money from the students. And then she used a phrase that actually lit the match. And when she called these YouTube teachers, do kaudi ka. And that's a Hindi expression that roughly translates not worth 2 coins. That's what exactly it means. And she also adds to that phrase that they have no knowledge, but were slowly starting to believe that they were very important people who could speak on any subject. This is the context of Anjana Om Kashyap's speech. And this clip went viral almost immediately. And by May 30th, this particular clip, if you look at, it was shared, it was captioned, it was debated across Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And the reaction from India's enormous online education community was swift, it was emotional, and also pointed. Now, the kind of backlash, this is almost resulting into a storm. It's like a storm on the social media. Do you think that the government, Anjana Om Kashyap happens to be one of the government's favorite channel, favorite anchors, and this is why we call her a Godi anchor, and everybody calls her a Godi anchor. Why do you think that the same government which always beckons and calls Anjana Om Kashyap for everything, that very government is helpless in protecting Anjana against this online backlash? What is the reason according to you?
No, I think one, Anjana Om Kashyap is the fall guy. I think they will allow that resentment to, because then they have successfully diverted, because it was a growing resentment against Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, which they could have scaled up to Mr. Modi. That was the direction the anger was taking. So I think they succeeded in cutting that anger and redirecting it towards Anjana Om Kashyap. I think that bit. Second, I think these teachers, they did not expect these teachers to come so heavily against Anjana Om Kashyap, that. And that was a very deliberate provocation against online, but the kind of language which you're citing she used was, I think, a very deliberate provocation to partly create this storm. But I think the other side of it, the way teachers are holding up to their self-respect, the kind of things they are saying, back to the reportage nature, they said that, तो नो आप तलवे चाटते हो तो क्या हम भी वही करें. आप नो रिपोर्टेज झूठ बोलते हो, धर्मेंद्र पहले ही मर गया, क्या हम वो करे, आप कहते हो 2000 नोट में चिप है, क्या हम वैसे झूठ बोलते हैं. So I think this claiming back, I think what I found astounding in this response is this claiming back of self-respect by these teachers, because they're all private teachers, they're all on their own, they don't have an organized voice, they're all left to themselves. I think it's the backing of the students. I think the kind of popularity they enjoy among the students, I think that's where the courage is coming from. That's where they know that they cannot easily be touched and their voice matters.
Right. You made an important point. You're saying that even the government realizes that these teachers, they have a support from the millions of students, and which is why the government is thinking twice before taking any action against these YouTube teachers. Now let's take one by one the examples of a few of the online teachers who've made very interesting remarks. Now I'd like to begin with Abhinay Sharma. Now, Abhinay Sharma is popularly known as Abhinay Sir, and he's the founder of the widely followed Abhinay Maths channel. And he was the first one to actually come out against Anjana Kashyap. And his question was a very simple one. A one-line question. He said that if YouTube teachers know nothing, then who exactly has been preparing millions of students for JEE, NEET, SSC, and UPSC examinations over the past several years? And that particular question, Ajay, has gone like a stinging reaction. Do you think that Anjana would have any answers to questions like these? Then I'll take on the next teacher. Yes.
See, of course, it's not Anjana would have no answer. But the interesting part about these teachers, Neelu, is that this is a very emotional space. They occupy a very teachers in general occupy an emotional space, because I myself am a professional teacher. I work in a university. I know we have very emotional ties with our students. But this lot, this coaching and this online lot, because they're giving educational access to first generation students who otherwise cannot afford quality education. So that's a very, very explosive space. So Anjana Om Kashyap, I think, has put her finger at a very wrong place, because this is a very explosive space where students have such great identification with these teachers, because these teachers are literally pulling them out from a life without quality, a life without hope, a life without opportunities, and giving them a better life. This is they are doing a great philanthropic work, and many of them don't charge. I think they make money through advertisements. I don't know how they make their living and money, but the students themselves are not charged.
Right. This point where you mentioned that many of these teachers are almost not charging, I'll come to the example of another online teacher whose name is Suman Ma'am, and she teaches through Ocean Gurukul's platform. That's a platform name, and she posted her own rebuttal, and it was considerably very sharp in tone. She pointed out that she runs free marathon classes on YouTube for students who cannot afford anything else, and asked why a news anchor sitting in an air-conditioned studio was calling her and her peers frauds. More pointedly, she called out the broader pattern of primetime television chasing TRP ratings while ignoring the real educational crisis like paper leaks and student unemployment. Yes, Ajay.
So I think that's true. So, and I think she has also pointed out to many false things these anchors spread. Yes. Anchors themselves being so mediocre, calling kettle black. The anchors themselves are so mediocre to point fingers towards these teachers. Abhinav, I think, also said that he left 5 government jobs to be in the space where he is. I mean, that's a big. I think many of them also come with a great passion. I think it's also out of a.
And these YouTube teachers are still continuing to record. I was watching one Ankit Avasthi. He was an IITian, and he recorded a rebuttal against Anjana Om Kashyap, saying that I was an IITian and I've given so many competitive exams, and I'm teaching what I love to, and the students are benefiting from what I'm teaching, and I'm teaching them chemistry, I'm teaching them maths, and all of that. And he describes it. Yes.
So I think that's a big takeaway, Neelu, that if you do work out of compassion and passion, the kind of confidence you will have that comes from the integrity. I think it is that from that space these teachers are able to speak back, which many professionals have been silenced. Lawyers today don't speak, judges are not able to speak, IAS don't speak, IPS don't speak, because many of these professionals are suffering from that. They lack both compassion and passion. That I think that space of integrity from which these teachers are speaking is a huge thing, because in the last 10 years, the bigger problem, Neelu, has been complete devaluation of professionals. All professions in this country have been devalued. Today, IAS complain in private, they are being treated like doormats. Today, IFS complain that they are being treated like, class 4 employees. Today, the teachers, are being called urban Naxals and they're being run down. The Delhi University Vice Chancellor gave a parallel interview where he said that it is the teachers who lack integrity. So he was also running down the teachers and putting the buck and blaming the teachers. So this has been a regime which willfully devalued all professions. Look at the plight of doctors.
What you say,
They've
I
been
still remember that clip. I still remember that clip. I think it was Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman who was shouting at one of the bureaucrats in the finance ministry. Then you remember how Smriti Irani's reports came out, how she spoke to one of the vice chancellors while she was the
yeah.
HRD minister. So you are
True.
absolutely right when you say that this is a government which doesn't believe in the integrity of the professionals. Now, can this become a huge movement? And this particular incident where Anjana is denigrating at the professional teachers, could this now take the shape of a big movement, started by the professionals in general?
Yes, I think it has to do two things. I think one, we should not keep focused with Anjana. I mean, Anjana is a non-issue. I mean, this she's just reading out a script. With people like Anjana, we should not ask what they have said. We should ask how long they have spoken. It's only the time that matters. If you ask her to speak for 20 minutes on some script, she can speak. You ask her to speak 30 minutes, she can speak. And I'm sure, Neelu, if you take the initiative and have a crowdsourcing and give her a crore, she might even say Rahul Gandhi Zindabad in her prime time. So I mean, I don't these anchors. I think don't think they stick to any values. That is their strength, that they are there to speak. So Anjana is a non-issue for me. What is getting articulated behind Anjana's controversy is a big issue. That on one hand, we should not lose focus of higher education crisis in this country with NEET, paper leakages, commercialization of education. I think that focus should not be lost. That's what was taking off, and Anjana kind of diverted it onto herself. Second, I think campaign that we should have now is professionals for self-respect. This is a campaign that we should take up with all the professionals, bringing all professionals, and I think Congress professional organization should take this up. They should take up this. There is a crisis among professionals.
They have a dedicated department. Congress has a dedicated department called All India Professional Front.
I think they should keep an eye. You should see the angst of these professionals who have given up lucrative careers in IIT, government jobs, and have come. This is the lot we need to speak to. This is a knot we need to fall by. And it's very clear, because of passion and compassion, the way they could so easily speak against the regime. Today, in a complete atmosphere of fear and silencing, these guys could do it so easily. I mean, that lady who spoke out, and Suman, you said, she was making fun of the nature of coverage and said that, the nature of misfacts, the false news fake news that you spread. Is that what is knowledge is? I mean, that's a very direct question, which also is a comment on the regime, what nature of narratives they're running. So I think that two types of campaigns now need to come together. One, professionals for self-respect should be one campaign to bring, and I think these teachers can take a big lead with the support of their students. The other is, I think, that in general, because these teachers themselves have risen, this entire controversy and attack on them has come because they were the first one to speak fearlessly against NEET. They said that NEET leakage involves 25 lakh students' future. So they are passionately linked to their students' lives, and they're emotionally linked to their students' life. Of course, that should not overspill. That I again remind you of Khan sir's statement. We should shoot the Pasik pe kar dena hai. We should encounter those who leak NEET paper. I think this is an absolutely uncalled for. They should know. We should only call in for better procedures, more constitutional provisions, better accountability, which doesn't mean we start talking of encounters and all. That's partly the problem with coaching teachers, that they should also start. I think once they are in a collective life, they would also perhaps learn a thing or two.
Absolutely. No, but this entire episode has also exposed, Ajay, I think, some very old and more complicated, rather a deepening mistrust, I would say, between the mainstream television news channel and this entire digital educational ecosystem. What would you say to that? It shows a deep distrust that these teachers don't trust what the Godi anchors are talking and speaking about. And similarly, it's vice versa. Look at how Anjana spoke against these teachers and say कि वो दो कौड़ी के हैं, उनको कुछ आता नहीं है, blackboard पर लिखते हैं, explainer बनाने वाले YouTubers. That's how she represented the whole thing.
I think this has been happening for some time. And if you see the viewership data, it's clearly shifting to social media. I think the way viewership has grown for your channels, for Public India and other channel, alternate media. I remember when we started off, we had very few views. Now I see it's always running into lakhs. Each of your videos is running. So that's a very clear shift. That where is that viewership coming from? It's coming from mainstream media. That people no longer want to watch because people know it's a set agenda. Except I think 10% of the core vote of the BJP RSS, that is thoroughly communalized. I don't think there is now a big population which really takes anything that is being said seriously. And you must have seen Arnab Goswami recently going critical, go against Gango against a BJP spokesperson because of the falling TRP rates. He has to retrieve his credibility. Sometimes mainstream channels are also inviting some of us because they want to retrieve their credibility and look at least partially neutral. Even setting a narrative, they'll need to look bit neutral. This method of propaganda, Goebbels method, India is far too an open society to fall prey to Goebbels method. That's 10%. Yes, middle class. Yes, this is a section which has completely been taken over by this kind of nonsense narratives that are spread to mainstream TV. But people otherwise, because there people talk in public spaces, in public sphere, people exchange ideas and they can counter check these facts, something that they can
always. When controversies like these take place, normally what is observed is that the standard practice for the TV news channels is to simply wait the controversies out. Now, I'm just wondering, how long will Anjana Om Kashyap wait, and will she issue an apology if the situation continues like this? Do you think that the channel will issue an apology, or Anjana is going to issue an apology? How is this controversy going to rest?
No, certainly not. I think in the previous thing also I have mentioned this point, Neelu, that this regime works on the basis of creating crisis. So there is no question of apology and turning out. They're happy that this controversy is happening because see, their model of governance is one crisis to another.
So you are saying that the government will remain happy as long as the focus continues to remain on Anjana and not on Modi?
Absolutely, that the one crisis to another. So the modus operandi is to quell one crisis, you create a bigger one. To quell that, you create another one. So you're in a perpetual state of crisis so that the focus on real issues diverts. And also, it, as I've explained in previous, it raises the bar for Mr. Modi, that he looks the only moral leader around. So there is no question of government taking any initiative in quelling this crisis. They are very happy that Anjana Om Kashyap is taking the bullet. If it push comes to shove, they might push her out of the TV channel. I mean, it's as simple as that. There are many fall guys. If push comes to shove, if you remember during COVID, they became so.
Can do that? Do you think TV today will do that?
I mean, push come to shove, and if they are convinced that their viewership is going to take a big hit, they might do it as a face-saving grace. They might escape out. If you remember during COVID, Mr. Modi removed Mr. Harshvardhan as health minister because there was such huge cry out of COVID deaths. So I mean, they are having this typical.
But you remember, in the very field of education, even the education ministry, the education ministers have been removed. Smriti Irani was removed. Prakash Javadekar was removed. Nishank Pokhriyal, if you remember, he was the HRD minister. He was removed. So it's not that the government doesn't make anybody a fall guy.
But only caveat is Dharmendra Pradhan is a direct recruitment from the RSS. So he is implementing the RSS agenda much more vigorously than anybody else would have done. But as I said, if it push comes to shove, I don't think Modi will go back in removing any of them. I mean, they are immaterial. None of them carry that kind of a weight. If Dharmendra Pradhan is removed, I don't think there's anybody who will feel sorry that education ministry lost a stalwart. There's nobody who's going to say that. So actually, in keeping their images low, you actually don't lose anything by losing any of them. So it's a very strange model they have propped up that nobody is going to miss them. So they can always be sacrificed. So I think the point right now is that they want this crisis to fester. this. They want it to keep boiling so that we keep programs on Anjana Kashyap, we get into media, we get into coverage, we get into all those other issues. But we should not forget that we should finally link all of that to the original point of NEET crisis. That the crisis in higher education is our focus. Devaluation of professions is our second concern. I think we should keep, even as we critique Anjana Kashyap, I think we should not forget these two are our central long-term concerns as far as we are concerned.
Absolutely. And another question which I want to ask you is that this Anjana Om Kashyap's incident, has this not become a sort of a referendum on a larger question, that who actually serves the Indian students and who gets to decide? That is also a question which don't you think that this episode, this backlash against Anjana is also reflecting that?
So that's a good question, Neelu. I think the fact that, the way she has treated with contempt these teachers also somewhere has a reflection on the nature of the students who they reach out to. I mean, the fact that they could have been taught to be so dispensable that that these teachers lack respect. The fact that they come on, come with some graphs, which is all devaluing. And of course, she pitched them against college and university teachers. Not that these guys respect college and university. Parallel narrative was run by DU Vice Chancellor, is already running parallel narrative against university and college teachers. So they would devalue both. But as you rightly pointed out, to mention, to run down the teachers the way she has done, this has been the consistent policy of this regime against all professions, not just one or two, against literally all professions. This is the image they want, that you are living. This is the final thing they want people to come up with. That is the final conclusion they want the people to come up with, so that they support extra institutional methods, extra constitutional methods, demagoguery. So that is the larger plan we need to keep in mind. Though Anjana Om Kashyap is an immediate, there's a context in which why she did what she did, but there is, I think, a long-term strategy also in this, that they want to run down all professions. So that I think the movement should really be to reclaim self-respect for professions. Look at the way doctors are being beaten up. You have to now bring laws to protect these doctors. So that all these are interlinked issues which the regime is playing one against the other. So I think our concern should be that Anjana Om Kashyap's running down of these teachers, and even as we give a cautionary note to these teachers that they are not supposed to expel, go overboard and call for encounter and fussy and other stuff. That's, I think they also should probably, when they get into the collective life, they will also learn a thing or two.
Yes, true. Okay, so thank you so much for a great conversation, Professor Ajay Gudavarti. I hope, across the sectors, people learn from this conversation we've had, because it's about a larger question. It's just not about one anchor. Our aim is not to denigrate Anjana Om Kashyap. She happens and belongs to our fraternity. But the point is to address the larger question. And that's what exactly we discussed this evening. Thank you so much, Ajay, for joining on HW. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.